You asked for privacy. Enjoy it outside my house.
The email arrived at 11:43 on a Tuesday night, and it changed everything. I was sitting in my home office, debugging code for a client presentation, when my phone buzzed. Corinne's name appeared on the screen. We'd been married 14 years, lived in the same house, shared the same bed that morning. The message contained exactly 7 words. I need space, respect my privacy, please. No explanation, no conversation, just a cold dismissal delivered through a screen while she sat 2 rooms away. I stared at those words until they blurred. Then I did what any systems architect would do. I started thinking logically about infrastructure and access points. Of course, I typed back. I'll respect your privacy completely. Then I forwarded her email to our marriage counselor, copied our joint financial advisor, and began the most methodical dismantling of a shared life that Shale Falls, Ohio had ever witnessed. My name is Leo Garrison, and this is the story of how I gave my wife exactly what she asked for. Shale Falls is the kind of Rust Belt town where everyone knows your business before you do. The old steel mill closed in '98, leaving behind a skeleton of rusted girders and half the population. The people who stayed are either too stubborn or too broke to leave. I'm probably both. Our house sits on Maple Street, a split-level ranch that Corinne and I bought when we still believed in joint dreams. The neighborhood's seen better days. Half the houses have plywood windows. The other half have residents who watch those windows like they're streaming their favorite show. Mira Henderson, our neighbor 3 doors down, made gossip an Olympic sport. I'd need her later. But first, I needed to understand what privacy meant in practical terms. I spent that first night creating a spreadsheet. Every shared account, every joint asset, every point of connection between Corinne's life and mine. The HELOC we'd opened for her boutique law practice renovation. The emergency contacts at both our jobs. The family cell phone plan. The streaming services, for God's sake. If she wanted privacy, she'd get it in full measure. Wednesday morning, I called the bank at 8:05. I need to freeze our home equity line of credit, I told the representative, a woman named Patricia, who sounded like she'd heard worse. My wife and I are separating, and I want to ensure no unilateral decisions are made regarding our joint assets. I understand, Mr. Garrison. I'll flag the account immediately. Both parties will need to be present for any future transactions. Perfect. Thank you, Patricia. Corinne had pulled $40,000 from that line 3 weeks ago. I'd seen the statement but hadn't asked questions. We were married, after all. Trusting. Stupid. Now I knew that money had gone toward an apartment deposit and furniture for her new place. The place she'd share with Gideon Reeves, though I didn't know that part yet. At 9:15, I called my HR department. Angela, this is Leo Garrison in Systems Architecture. I need to update my emergency contact information. Sure thing, Leo. What's the change? Remove Corinne Garrison. Replace with my brother, Paul Garrison. I gave her Paul's number. Everything okay? Angela's voice carried that particular tone of concern that really meant curiosity. Just updating records. You know how it is. Sure. I'll process this today. I'd worked at Meridian Systems for 9 years. Angela had worked in HR for 15. She knew exactly what removing a spouse from emergency contacts meant. And by lunch, half the office would know too. Good. At 10:30, I removed Corinne from our family cell plan, downgrading us to individual accounts. At 11, I changed the passwords on our streaming services, using her own words as inspiration. Respect my privacy 2024. The irony pleased me more than it should have. I was heating up leftover pasta when my phone rang. Corinne's sister, Beatrix. Leo, what the heck are you doing? Beatrix had a voice like grinding gears, all mechanical outrage and no warmth. Respecting Corinne's privacy, like she asked. Is there something specific you're calling about? She can't access the HELOC. She needs that money. The HELOC is a joint asset tied to a house I'm currently living in alone. Any changes to it will require both of us to be present at the bank. That seems fair, doesn't it? You're being petty. I'm being precise. There's a difference. She's going to make your life heck, Leo. She already did, Beatrix. She just didn't tell me about it until last night. Have a great day. I hung up and took a bite of pasta. It was cold. I didn't care. The thing about Corinne is that she'd always been good at controlling narratives. She was a lawyer, not a particularly successful one, but she had the vocabulary and the confidence. She could make you doubt your own memory of events, twist your words until they meant something you never intended. But she'd made one critical mistake. She'd put her demand in writing. Respect my privacy. fine. I'd respect it so thoroughly, she'd choke on it. Thursday morning, I got the first hint that Corinne's privacy was already crumbling. My phone rang at 7:30. Unknown number. Is this Leo Garrison? Speaking. This is Shale Falls Community Hospital. We have your wife, Corinne Garrison, here. She's had an accident at work. Nothing serious, a sprained ankle. But she listed you as her emergency contact. I felt something cold settle in my chest. I'm no longer her emergency contact. We're separated. She should have updated her forms. A pause. Oh, I see. Well, she's asking for you. I'm respecting her request for privacy. I'm sure she has other people she can call. Another pause, longer this time. Sir, she's quite upset. Then I suggest calling whoever she's been spending her time with lately. Have a good day. I hung up. My hands were shaking. This was harder than I'd expected. 14 years of conditioning, of being the person who showed up, who fixed things, who made everything okay, don't disappear overnight. Every instinct screamed at me to get in the car and drive to that hospital. Instead, I made coffee and went to work. By noon, my phone had 17 missed calls. Beatrix, Corinne, Beatrix again, a number I didn't recognize. Corinne's mother, Vivian, more Beatrix. I didn't answer any of them. At 1:30, Angela from HR stopped by my desk. Leo, I got a strange call from Shale Falls Hospital this morning. They were trying to reach Corinne through your emergency contact. Yes, I heard. I explained that we're separated and I'm no longer her contact. Angela's eyes widened slightly. Oh, I didn't realize. I'm sorry. Nothing to be sorry about. These things happen. If you need any time off or if there's anything HR can do. I'm fine, Angela, but thank you. She lingered for a moment, clearly wanting more details. I turned back to my monitor and started typing. She got the hint. By the end of the day, everyone in the office knew. I could feel the looks, hear the whispered conversations that stopped when I walked past. Good. Let them talk. Let the story spread. Corinne wanted privacy, but privacy is a luxury that requires cooperation from everyone around you. And I was no longer cooperating. Friday evening they came. I was in the garage organizing tools when I heard the vehicles pull up. 2 cars, Corinne's silver Lexus and a pickup truck I didn't recognize. Doors slammed, voices carried across the yard. I walked to the front of the garage and waited. Corinne came up the driveway first, limping slightly, her ankle wrapped in a beige brace. Behind her came Beatrix, and behind Beatrix came a man I'd never met but instantly understood. Gideon Reeves was exactly what I'd expected. Mid-30s, wearing jeans and a tight black t-shirt that showed off arms that spent more time lifting weights than doing anything productive. Dark hair slicked back, a jaw that belonged on a cologne advertisement, and eyes that held the particular stupidity of a man who thinks charm is a substitute for character. Leo! Corinne's voice was ice-wrapped in steel. I need to get my things. Your things? My personal items, clothes, documents, my laptop? I see. And you brought an entourage for that? Gideon stepped forward. We're just here to help her move, man. No need to make this difficult. I looked at him for a long moment. I'm sorry. Who are you? I'm Gideon, a friend of Corinne's. A friend, right? I turned back to Corinne. Your personal items are already packed. I'll bring them out. Wait here. I want to come inside and make sure you got everything. No. Excuse me? You asked for privacy, Corinne. That means you don't get access to my private space anymore. This house is my private space. I've packed your personal effects, clothing, toiletries, documents with your name on them. Everything else is joint property that will be divided through mediation. You can't keep me out of my own house. It's not your house anymore. You left. You wanted space. You're getting it. Beatrix jumped in. This is ridiculous, Leo. Just let her get her stuff and we'll go. I said I'd bring it out. Wait here. I turned and walked into the house, leaving them standing in the driveway. My heart was hammering, but my hands were steady. I'd spent the last 2 days packing Corinne's things into boxes. Clothes, shoes, bathroom supplies, her legal documents, her laptop and charger. Everything that was unambiguously hers. I'd been methodical about it, even gentle. Folded everything neatly. Used good boxes. But I'd left certain things out. The turntable and vinyl collection we'd built together, that stayed. The artwork on the walls, that stayed. The sculpture she'd bought on our trip to Santa Fe, a bronze piece called The Wanderer, that definitely stayed. I loaded 8 boxes onto a dolly and wheeled them out to the driveway. Here you go, everything that's solely yours. Corinne looked at the boxes, then at me. Where's my record collection? Our record collection is joint property. It'll be divided through mediation. Leo, Don't be ridiculous. Most of those records are mine. Prove it. Show me receipts. Otherwise, they're joint property. Where's the sculpture from Santa Fe? Joint property. The artwork? Joint property. Her face was turning red. You're being a child. I'm being precise. There's a difference. Gideon stepped forward again. Look, man, just give her the stuff and we'll get out of your hair. I don't take instructions from strangers in my driveway. Corinne, if you want to dispute the division of assets, you can do that through the mediator. Until then, this is what you get. I'm not leaving without my things. Then I guess you're not leaving. I turned and walked back toward the garage. Behind me, I heard Corinne say something sharp to Gideon, heard Beatrix's voice rising in indignation. I didn't care. I was done being reasonable. They came back on Sunday with a moving truck. I watched from the living room window as they pulled up. Corinne's Lexus, Beatrix's SUV, Gideon's pickup, and a 16-foot U-Haul. 4 additional people I didn't recognize climbed out, clearly hired muscle for the move. I'd been expecting this. I'd prepared for it. I walked outside before they could reach the door. Can I help you? Corinne stepped forward. She dressed for battle, power suit, hair pulled back, the ankle brace replaced with a more subtle wrap. Lawyer mode activated. We're here to collect my property. I have a right to my belongings. You have a right to your personal belongings, which I already gave you. Everything else is joint property. I'm not leaving without my things, Leo. Then I guess we have a problem. Gideon moved to stand beside her, trying to look intimidating. It didn't work. I'm 6'2" and spent my 20s doing construction before I got into tech. I'm not easily intimidated by a guy whose hands have never seen real work. We can do this easy or hard, Gideon said. Your choice. Is that a threat? It's a reality check. I smiled. Okay. Let's do it hard then. But know that I have security cameras covering every angle of this property, and everything you do here is being recorded. Also, Mira Henderson across the street is watching from her window and she's got her phone out. So whatever you do, make it good for the audience. I saw Corinne's jaw tighten. She hadn't expected me to be prepared. I just want my things. Then take the boxes I already gave you and go. I want the turntable. No. The sculpture. No. The painting from our bedroom. No, no, and no. Joint property, Corinne. We'll divide it through mediation with a neutral third party, like civilized people. Beatrix pushed forward. Stop being such a vindictive a-hole, Leo. I'm not being vindictive. I'm being fair. Corinne wanted privacy and space. I gave her both. Now she wants to cherry-pick assets? That's not how this works. Corinne's face had gone from red to white. Fine, we'll go through mediation. But I'm taking the Wanderer. I bought it. With joint funds, on a joint vacation, and it's been displayed in our joint home. That makes it joint property. It's mine, Leo. Prove it. She stared at me for a long moment. Then she turned and walked toward the house. Corinne, don't. She ignored me, limping up the front steps. I moved to block her, but Gideon grabbed my arm. Let her go, man. I looked down at his hand on my arm, then at his face. Remove your hand or I'll remove it for you. He squeezed tighter. Big talk. Last warning. He didn't let go, so I twisted my arm in a quick motion I'd learned in a self-defense class years ago, breaking his grip and putting him off balance. He stumbled backwards, surprised. You attacked me, he shouted. You grabbed me first. It's all on camera. Want to call the cops and discuss it? He glared but didn't move forward again. Inside the house, I heard something crash. I ran inside, Gideon and Beatrix following. In the living room, Corinne stood over the shattered remains of the Wanderer. The bronze sculpture lay in pieces on the hardwood floor, deliberately destroyed. If I can't have it, neither can you, she said. I pulled out my phone and took pictures from multiple angles. Corinne standing over the wreckage, the pieces of bronze, her face still flushed with anger. Thanks for that, I said calmly. That's destruction of joint property. The mediator will love it. It was mine to destroy. Actually, it wasn't, but we'll let the lawyers sort that out. I turned to Gideon and Beatrix. Get out of my house, now, or I'm calling the police for trespassing. You can't. I can and I will. You have 30 seconds. Corinne looked like she wanted to break something else, but Beatrix grabbed her arm. Come on, this isn't worth it. They left, the hired movers following without having moved anything. The U-Haul pulled away empty. I stood in my living room, looking at the destroyed sculpture. It had cost us $800. It had meant something once, a symbol of our shared adventure, our willingness to explore together. Now it was just broken bronze on broken dreams. I swept up the pieces and put them in a box. Evidence for later. Then I poured myself a bourbon and sat down to update my spreadsheet. Monday morning, I sent the photos and video footage to our mediator, Diane Chen, along with a detailed timeline of events. By noon, I had her response. Leo, I've reviewed the materials. This significantly impacts the division of assets. Corinne's attorney will be notified. Please document any further incidents. By 2 p.m., I had an email from Corinne's lawyer, a guy named Robert Finch who specialized in divorce cases and had a reputation for being aggressive. Mr. Garrison, my client informs me that you are withholding her personal property and creating a hostile environment. We demand immediate access to collect her belongings, or we will pursue legal remedies. I forwarded it to Diane with a simple response. All personal property was returned. Joint property will be divided per mediation agreement. Video evidence of destruction attached. The thing about being a systems architect is that you learn to think in terms of dependencies and failure points. A system is only as strong as its weakest component. Corinne's system had a lot of weak components. The HELOC freeze was already causing problems. She'd planned to use that money to renovate Gideon's auto shop. He ran a vintage car restoration business that was more hobby than income. Without the $40,000 she'd already pulled and the $60,000 she'd planned to pull, the renovation was dead. I knew this because Beatrix, despite her loyalty to her sister, couldn't keep her mouth shut. She'd told Mira Henderson, who'd told me while I was getting my mail Wednesday evening. Such a shame about Corinne's plans, Mira had said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. Beatrix says they were going to do something wonderful with that old garage on Route 42. Is that so? Oh, yes, but I guess with the separation and all, those plans are on hold. She waited for me to offer information. I didn't. Well, these things happen, I said and went back inside. But I filed that information away. Gideon's shop, Route 42, vintage cars, useful. Thursday evening, I got a call from Vivian, Corinne's mother. Vivian was old money from Cleveland, the kind of woman who wore pearls to the grocery store and considered everyone from Shale Falls to be slightly beneath her notice. Leo, we need to talk about your behavior. Hello, Vivian. What behavior specifically? You're being cruel to Corinne, freezing accounts, keeping her property, turning this into a war. I'm following the legal process for separation of assets. If that feels like war, perhaps Corinne shouldn't have sent me a 7-word email ending our marriage. She needed space to think. She got it. She's got an apartment, a new boyfriend, and complete privacy from me. What more does she want? A long pause. A new boyfriend? Oh, this was interesting. You didn't know about Gideon? Who is Gideon? The man she's been seeing, the one she brought to my house to intimidate me, the one whose auto shop she was planning to renovate with our home equity line? Silence on the other end. Then, that's not possible. It's very possible. It's actually what happened. Corinne wouldn't. She's not. She did. She is. And now, you know as much as I do, Vivian. Have a good evening. I hung up. 10 minutes later, my phone exploded with texts from Corinne. You told my mother about Gideon? You had no right. This is between us. You're trying to turn everyone against me. I didn't respond. I was respecting her privacy after all. Friday afternoon, I left work early and drove to Route 42. Gideon's shop wasn't hard to find. A converted garage with a hand-painted sign reading Reeves Restoration and 3 vintage cars in various states of disrepair in the lot. I parked across the street and watched for 20 minutes. Gideon was working on a blue Mustang, his shirt off, music blaring from speakers in the garage. Very professional. I didn't approach. I just watched, noted the security situation, there wasn't one, and drove home. I was building a map of vulnerabilities. Every system has them. You just have to know where to look. The confrontation I'd been expecting came on a Tuesday night at The Drop, the local roadhouse where Shale Falls residents went to drink away their disappointments. I'd started going there after work, nursing a beer and watching the locals. It was research, in a way. Understanding the ecosystem. Plus, the bartender, a woman named Jackie with arms covered in faded tattoos, made a decent burger. I was halfway through that burger when Corinne walked in with Gideon, Beatrix, and 2 people I recognized from high school, Mike Patterson and Jennifer Hollis. Mike and I had been close once, before life and distance pulled us apart. Jennifer had been Corinne's college roommate and had always taken her side in any dispute. They spotted me immediately. I watched them have a quick conversation, saw the moment they decided to approach. Leo. Mike said my name like it tasted bad. Didn't expect to see you here. It's a public place, Mike. I'm allowed to exist in it. We heard what you've been doing to Corinne. What I've been doing, that's interesting. What exactly have you heard? Jennifer stepped forward. You froze her out of your accounts. You're keeping her property. You're trying to ruin her financially. I separated joint accounts during a separation. I'm holding joint property for mediation, and I'm not trying to ruin anyone. I'm protecting my interests. Wouldn't you do the same? She's struggling, Leo. She can't even afford her rent without that HELOC money. Then maybe she shouldn't have pulled $40,000 from it without discussing it with me first. Maybe she shouldn't have planned to pull another $60,000 for her boyfriend's business without mentioning it. Just thoughts. Gideon stepped forward. Watch your mouth. Or what? You'll grab my arm again? How'd that work out last time? You think you're so smart, don't you? Corinne's voice was shaking. You think you've won something? I don't think about winning, Corinne. I think about fairness. You want it out of our marriage? Fine. But you don't get to take everything on your way out the door. I'm not taking everything. I just want what's mine. Then you should have thought about that before you destroyed the Wanderer. That sculpture was worth $800. The mediator's adding it to the asset division. You just cost yourself $400 in a temper tantrum. Her face went red. You're a petty, vindictive bastard. I'm precise. There's a difference. Mike put his hand on my shoulder. You need to back off, man. You're making this harder than it needs to be. I looked at his hand, then at his face. Mike, I'm going to give you some advice. Remove your hand and walk away. You don't know what's actually happening here, and you don't want to get involved. I know you're being an a-hole to someone I care about. You care about her? Where were you 2 years ago when her law practice was failing and she was having panic attacks every night? Where were you when her father died and she couldn't get out of bed for a week? I was there, Mike. I was always there. And the moment she decided she wanted something different, she sent me a 7-word email and moved on. So forgive me if I'm not particularly concerned about her struggles now. That doesn't give you the right. It gives me every right to protect myself. Now remove your hand. He didn't. Instead, he pushed me. Not hard, but enough to make me stumble back against the bar. The bar went quiet. Jackie stopped wiping glasses. The other patrons turned to watch. That was a mistake, I said quietly. What are you going to do about it? Mike's voice was loud, playing to the crowd. You going to cry about it? File a complaint? I smiled. No, Mike. I'm going to buy you a drink. That confused him. What? Jackie, get Mike here whatever he wants, on me, and get one for everyone at this table. I pulled out my wallet and put $200 on the bar. In fact, get a round for the whole bar. We're celebrating. Celebrating what? Jennifer asked suspiciously. My freedom, my privacy, my new life without people who take advantage of me. Cheers, everyone! I raised my beer. A few people in the bar, confused but happy for free drinks, raised theirs back. Corinne looked like she wanted to hit me. You're making a scene. I'm buying drinks. You're the one who came over here looking for a fight, but hey, enjoy the beer. It's on me, just like everything else has been for the last 14 years. I drained my bottle, put it on the bar, and walked out. Behind me, I heard Gideon say something about showing that a hole, but I was already in my car, pulling away. My hands were shaking again. The confrontation had taken more out of me than I'd expected, but I'd made my point. In front of witnesses, in front of the town gossip mill. By morning, everyone would know that Corinne and her friends had confronted me at the drop, and I'd responded by buying drinks for the bar. Narrative control. That's what this was about. The next day, I got a call from Paul, my brother in Pittsburgh. Leo, what the heck is going on? Corinne's mother called me. Vivian called you? Yeah, she's worried about you. Says you're acting erratic and vindictive. Vivian just found out her daughter's been cheating on me with a guy who runs a failing auto shop. She's probably trying to figure out where she went wrong as a parent. Wait, Corinne cheated? I don't have proof of when it started, but yeah, she's with him now. Brought him to our house to help her move out. Jesus, Leo, I'm sorry. Don't be. I'm handling it. That's what worries me. How are you handling it? Legally, carefully, precisely. That sounds ominous. It's practical. I'm protecting my assets and making sure she doesn't walk away with everything while playing the victim. Just don't do anything stupid, okay? Define stupid. You know what I mean. Don't let this turn you into someone you're not. I thought about that for a moment. What if I'm finally becoming who I actually am? That's exactly what worries me. We talked for a few more minutes, but I could tell Paul didn't understand. He'd been happily married for 12 years, had 2 kids, lived in a nice suburb. His wife hadn't destroyed their life with a 7-word email. He couldn't understand what I was doing because he'd never had to do it. That evening, I drove back to Route 42. Gideon's shop was closed, but his pride and joy, a restored 1967 Corvette in cherry red, sat in the lot, unlocked. I didn't touch it. I just looked at it, noted the lack of security cameras, the absence of any alarm system, and drove home. I wasn't going to do anything illegal, but I was going to do something memorable. Saturday morning, I went to Home Depot and bought several cans of paint stripper, a large tarp, and heavy-duty gloves. Then I drove to Route 42 and parked down the street from Reeves Restoration. The Corvette was still sitting in the lot, gleaming in the morning sun. I walked up casually, like I belonged there. Nobody was around. The shop was closed on weekends unless Gideon had a specific project. I spread the tarp on the ground next to the Corvette. Then, very carefully, I opened a can of paint stripper and, accidentally, knocked it over near the car's front quarter panel. The chemical splashed across the pristine paint job, immediately beginning to bubble and strip. "Oh no," I said loudly, to no one. "How clumsy of me." I set up my phone to record, then made a show of trying to clean it up with the tarp, which only spread the chemical further across the hood and door. By the time I was done with my accident, the Corvette's front end looked like it had a severe case of automotive leprosy. I gathered my supplies, got in my car, and drove away. 2 hours later, my phone rang. Unknown number. "You son of a witch!" Gideon's voice was raw with rage. "You destroyed my car!" "I'm sorry, what? Who is this?" "You know full well who this is. You came to my shop and ruined my Corvette." "I don't know what you're talking about. I've been home all morning." "Bees, I have witnesses who saw your car." "Then I'm sure you'll report it to the police and they'll investigate. Though I have to say, leaving an expensive vintage car in an unsecured lot seems like poor business practice. Anyone could have damaged it." "I'm going to..." "Going to what, Gideon? Threaten me? Please do. I'm recording this call." Silence. "Here's some free advice," I continued. "Get insurance, get security cameras, and maybe stop sleeping with other men's wives. It tends to create enemies." I hung up. He didn't call the police. Of course he didn't, because he couldn't prove I'd done anything, and involving the cops would mean explaining why someone might want to damage his property, which would mean explaining his relationship with Corinne, which would create all sorts of uncomfortable questions. The Corvette's paint job would cost him at least $5,000 to fix, money he didn't have thanks to the HELOC freeze. I felt something warm in my chest. Not quite satisfaction. Something sharper, justice maybe, or revenge. Sometimes they're the same thing. The mediator's report came on a Thursday morning, delivered via email with the subject line, "Asset Division Recommendation, Garrison Separation." I read it over coffee, savoring every word. Diane Chen had reviewed all the evidence, the emails, the video footage of Corinne destroying the Wanderer, the financial records showing the unauthorized HELOC withdrawal, the timeline of events. Her conclusion was damning. Based on the evidence provided, Mrs. Garrison has acted in bad faith regarding joint assets. Her destruction of joint property and unauthorized use of joint credit demonstrates a pattern of behavior that cannot be rewarded in the division of assets. I recommend Mr. Garrison retain the house and 70% of joint assets, with Mrs. Garrison receiving 30% plus her separate property. 70-30. I'd expected 50-50 at best. I forwarded the report to my lawyer, a quiet man named David Brennan, who specialized in making sure his clients got exactly what they deserved. His response came within an hour. "This is excellent, Leo. Her attorney will fight it, but the evidence is solid. Well done." Well done. Like I'd completed a project, which, in a way, I had. By noon, Corinne knew. My phone started buzzing with texts, but I'd blocked her number days ago. The texts came through as notification sounds without content, just rhythmic buzzing that I eventually silenced. At 2 p.m., Beatrix called from a different number. "You bastard! You manipulated everything!" "Hello, Beatrix. I'm not sure what you're referring to." "The mediator's report. 70-30? That's insane!" That's what happens when someone destroys joint property on camera and makes unauthorized withdrawals from joint credit. Actions have consequences. She was desperate. You froze her out. I protected joint assets during a separation. That's not only legal, it's recommended. If Corinne wanted access to joint funds, she should have discussed it with me before pulling $40,000. That money was for her new start. That money was joint property. She stole it. The mediator agrees. You're ruining her life. No, Beatrix, I'm ending my participation in it. There's a difference. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to do. I hung up. The thing about revenge is that it's not one big moment. It's a series of small, precise actions that compound over time, each one individually defensible, each one legally sound. But together, they create an avalanche. The HELOC freeze had ended Gideon's shop renovation. The mediator's report had secured my financial position. The Corvette accident had cost Gideon thousands he didn't have, but I wasn't done. Friday afternoon, I drove to Meridian Systems headquarters for a meeting with Angela in HR. I'd requested it earlier in the week, citing concerns about workplace dynamics. Angela met me in a small conference room, her expression professionally neutral. Leo, thanks for coming in. You mentioned some concerns. Yes, I wanted to make sure the company is aware of my separation from Corinne and to discuss any potential conflicts of interest. Conflicts of interest? Corinne occasionally does contract work for companies in our industry. I want to make sure that if she approaches Meridian for any reason, the company understands that we're separated and I have no involvement in her business dealings. I see. Has she approached us? Not yet, but I know she's struggling financially, and I want to be transparent about the situation. I also want to make sure that if she tries to use our former relationship to gain access to company information or resources, it's documented that I flagged this as a concern. Angela made notes. That's very responsible of you, Leo. I'll make sure this is documented in your file and shared with relevant departments. I appreciate it. I'm also happy to discuss the separation if anyone has questions. I know there's been some gossip, and I'd rather people have accurate information. What would you like people to know? That Corinne asked for privacy and space, which I've given her, that we're going through a legal separation process, and that I'm focusing on my work and my future. That sounds very healthy. I'm trying to be mature about it, even though it's difficult. We talked for a few more minutes. I was calm, reasonable, professional. Everything Corinne wasn't being. By Monday, everyone at Meridian would know the official version of events. Leo, the reasonable one, trying to move forward. Corinne, the one who'd asked for separation and was now struggling with the consequences. Narrative control. That evening, I stopped at the Drop for dinner. Jackie greeted me with a knowing smile. Leo! The legend returns! Legend? Everyone's talking about how you bought drinks for the whole bar last week. That was smooth. Just trying to keep things civil. Civil. Right. She leaned closer. Word is, Corinne's not doing so well. Her boyfriend's car got trashed. Her lawyer's telling her she's getting a raw deal in the separation. Her mother's not speaking to her. That's unfortunate. Is it, though? I smiled. Can I get the burger and a beer? Coming right up, legend. I sat at the bar, watching the local news on the TV mounted in the corner. A story about the old steel mill, plans for redevelopment that would never happen. A story about the high school football team. A story about... My phone buzzed. Paul. Hey, Leo, just checking in. How are you doing? I'm good, Paul. Really. Mom called. She's worried about you. Why? She heard some things from Vivian about you being vindictive, causing problems for Corinne. Vivian's upset because her daughter cheated on me and is now facing consequences. I'm not being vindictive. I'm being fair. Fair can look like revenge from the other side. Then they shouldn't have given me reasons to be fair. Paul sighed. Just be careful, okay? Don't let this consume you. It's not consuming me. It's completing me. That's not reassuring, Leo. I know. We talked for a few more minutes, but I could tell Paul thought I was going too far. He didn't understand that I'd already gone too far, 14 years too far, into a marriage that was built on my compliance and her control. I was just correcting course. Jackie brought my burger. I ate slowly, thinking about next steps. The financial situation was handled. The narrative was controlled. But there was one more thing I wanted to do, one more piece of justice to claim. Corinne's law practice, Garrison Legal Services, ironically still using my last name, was struggling. I knew this because Mira had told me. And Mira knew because Beatrix couldn't keep her mouth shut. Corinne had 3 regular clients and a handful of occasional ones. Her specialty was small business contracts and local real estate transactions. Nothing glamorous, but it paid the bills. One of her regular clients was a guy named Thomas Vance, who owned a small chain of hardware stores. I knew Thomas. We'd been on the same softball team years ago. Saturday morning, I called him. "Thomas, it's Leo Garrison. How are you?" "Leo, long time, man. I heard about you and Corinne. Sorry about that." "Thanks. Actually, that's kind of why I'm calling. I wanted to give you a heads up about something." "Oh?" "Corinne and I are going through a pretty contentious separation. There's been some questionable behavior on her part. Destruction of property, unauthorized use of joint funds, that kind of thing. I just wanted to make sure you knew in case it affects her ability to handle your legal work professionally." A pause. "Is it that bad?" "Bad enough that the mediator recommended a 70-30 split in my favor. I'm not trying to hurt her business, Thomas. I just think you should have all the information." "I appreciate that, Leo. To be honest, I've been thinking about switching to a bigger firm anyway. This gives me a good reason to make the move." "Whatever you decide, I just wanted you to know the situation. Thanks for the heads up." We talked for a few more minutes, catching up. By the time I hung up, I knew Thomas would be finding a new lawyer. I made 2 more calls that day, both to people who did business with Corinne. Both conversations were friendly, concerned, informative. By Monday, Corinne would lose at least 2 of her 3 regular clients. Her income would drop by 60%, and there was nothing she could do about it because I hadn't lied. I'd simply shared information. Precise, legal, devastating. That night, I poured myself a bourbon and stood in my living room in my house, and felt something close to peace. Corinne had wanted privacy. I'd given her privacy for my support, my money, my protection. She'd wanted space. I'd given her space to fail, to struggle, to understand what she'd thrown away. She'd wanted freedom. I'd given her freedom from everything I'd provided for 14 years. And now she was learning what that freedom actually cost. I raised my glass to the empty room. "To privacy," I said. "May it keep you warm at night." The final confrontation came on a Wednesday evening, 3 months after that first 7-word email. I was home, packing up the last of Corinne's things, items she'd never collected, things I was legally required to hold for 90 days before disposing of them. The deadline had passed. I was done holding anything for her. The doorbell rang at 7:30. I looked through the peephole and saw Corinne, alone this time. No Beatrix, no Gideon, just her, looking smaller somehow, diminished. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. "Leo, can we talk?" "About what?" "About everything, about ending this war." "There is no war, Corinne. There's just a legal separation proceeding exactly as it should. You've destroyed my life. I've protected my interests, not the same thing. My clients left me. My practice is failing. Gideon and I are barely speaking. My mother won't return my calls. You did this. No, you did this. I just stopped cleaning up your messes." She looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something break behind her eyes. "I made a mistake, okay? I know that now. I shouldn't have sent that email. I should have talked to you. Yes, you should have. Can we try again? Start over?" I almost laughed. "You're not serious." "I am. I know I hurt you. I know I made bad choices. But we had 14 years together, Leo. That has to count for something." "It did count for something. It counted for everything. Until you decided it didn't." I was confused. I was scared. I thought I wanted something different. "And now you realize you wanted someone who'd pay your bills and clean up your mistakes. Sorry, Corinne. That position's been eliminated. Don't be cruel." "I'm not being cruel. I'm being honest. You wanted out. You got out. Now you want back in because being out is harder than you expected, but that's not my problem anymore." "What about forgiveness? What about second chances? What about the $40,000 you stole from our HELOC? What about the wanderer you destroyed? What about the 7-word email ending our marriage? What about bringing your boyfriend to my house? You want forgiveness? Earn it. But not from me. I'm done." Tears started down her face. Real ones, I think. "I have nothing left, Leo." "Then you know how I felt the night I got your email. Welcome to the experience. Please, I'm begging you, just stop. Stop whatever you're doing. Let me rebuild." I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Then I shook my head. "No." "Why not?" "Because you asked me to respect your privacy, Corinne. And I'm still respecting it. You wanted space from me? You've got it. You wanted freedom? It's yours. You wanted a new life? Go live it. But you don't get to come back here when that life gets hard and ask me to make it easier. I loved you. Past tense. Noted. I still... Don't say it. Don't cheapen whatever we had by pretending it still exists. You ended it. You buried it, and I've moved on. She stood there for another moment, then turned and walked back to her car. A different car than before. The Lexus was gone, replaced by a 10-year-old Honda. Gideon's doing, probably, or the repo man's. I watched her drive away, then closed the door. Inside, I poured the last of the bourbon and sat in my living room. The house was quiet, empty, mine. My phone buzzed. A text from David Brennan, my lawyer. Judge signed off on the settlement, 70-30 split approved. House is yours. Congratulations, Leo. You played this perfectly. I read the text 3 times. 14 years of marriage, ended with a legal document and a text message. I should have felt triumphant. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt tired, but I also felt free. The next morning, I called a real estate agent. The house had too many memories, too many ghosts. Time to sell it and start fresh somewhere else. Maybe Pittsburgh, near Paul, maybe somewhere completely new. I called Thomas Vance and asked if he needed any IT consulting for his hardware stores. He did. We set up a meeting. I called Jackie at the drop and asked if she wanted to get dinner sometime. Not at the bar, somewhere nice. She said yes. I boxed up the last of Corinne's things and drove them to Goodwill. Let someone else get use out of them. I took the pieces of The Wanderer to a sculptor in Cleveland who said she could melt them down and create something new. What do you want? She asked. Something that looks forward, I said, not back. 3 weeks later, the house sold. I made $140,000 on it after paying off the mortgage and the HELOC. Corinne's share, per the settlement, 30% of the profit, minus the cost of The Wanderer, minus half of the unauthorized HELOC withdrawal. Her check came to $11,000. Mine came to $129,000. I deposited it and started looking at apartments in Pittsburgh. 6 weeks later, I ran into Gideon at a gas station. He looked rough, unshaven, wearing clothes that had seen better days. He saw me and froze. I nodded at him. Gideon? Leo. How's the Corvette? His jaw tightened. Still getting fixed. That's too bad. Insurance didn't cover it? You know perfectly well I didn't have insurance. Poor business decision. He stepped closer. You ruined everything. No, Gideon, I just stopped participating in your plans, not the same thing. Corinne and I, we could have made it work. We could have had something. Until the money ran out. Then what? You would have found someone else with a HELOC to drain? You're a cold bastard. I'm a precise bastard. There's a difference. He looked like he wanted to hit me. Instead, he got in his truck and drove away. I finished pumping gas and got back on the road. 2 months later, I was settled in Pittsburgh. New apartment, new consulting business, new life. Jackie had come to visit twice. We were taking things slow, but there was potential there. Something real, built on honesty instead of habit. Paul and I had dinner every Sunday. His kids called me Uncle Leo and asked about my work. Normal life, family life. I heard through Mira, who still texted me occasionally, that Corinne had moved back in with her mother in Cleveland. The law practice had closed. Gideon was working construction, his shop gone. I felt nothing when I heard that. Not satisfaction, not regret, nothing. They were characters in a story I'd finished reading. One evening, I was walking through Pittsburgh's Strip District, enjoying the crowds and the energy, when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Hello, Leo, it's Vivian. I stopped walking. Vivian, this is unexpected. I wanted to apologize. For what? For believing Corinne's version of events, for calling you vindictive, for not seeing what was really happening. What changed your mind? Living with her for 2 months. Watching her blame everyone but herself. Listening to her talk about you like you were the villain when all you did was protect yourself. I appreciate that. She's my daughter, Leo. I love her, but she's difficult. She always has been. I thought marriage would settle her. I thought you were good for her. I was, until I wasn't useful anymore. A long pause. Yes, I think that's exactly right. Why are you really calling, Vivian? To say I'm sorry, and to say, you were a good husband, a good man. You deserve better than what she gave you. Thank you. That means something. I hope you find happiness, Leo. Real happiness. I'm working on it. We talked for a few more minutes, then said goodbye. I stood on the sidewalk, people flowing around me, and felt something settle in my chest. Not closure exactly, but something close to it. That night, I sat in my apartment and wrote an email. Not to Corinne, to myself. You asked for privacy, and I gave it to you. You asked for space, and I provided it. You asked me to respect your choices, and I did, by making my own. You wanted freedom from our marriage, and I gave you freedom from everything I'd been providing. You wanted a new life, and I stepped aside and let you build it. What you learned is that privacy is lonely, space is empty, and freedom without support is just another word for struggling alone. I didn't destroy your life. I just stopped holding it together. There's a difference. And now, finally, I'm free too. Free from your manipulation. Free from your blame. Free from the weight of being responsible for someone who never took responsibility for themselves. This is my last word on the subject. My last thought about what we were and what we became. After this, there's only forward. Only new chapters. Only the life I'm building on my own terms. You wanted privacy? You got it. Permanently. I saved the email in my drafts folder but didn't send it. It wasn't for her. It was for me. A marker. A boundary. An ending. The sculptor in Cleveland called the next day. The new piece was ready. I drove back to Ohio to pick it up. It was abstract, modern, all clean lines and forward motion. Nothing like The Wanderer. What do you think? The sculptor asked. It's perfect, I said. What do I owe you? Consider it a gift. Your story, what you told me about starting over, it inspired me. This one's on the house. I took the sculpture back to Pittsburgh and put it on my mantle. The first piece of art in my new life. That weekend, Jackie came to visit. We cooked dinner together, drank wine, talked about everything and nothing. She saw the sculpture and smiled. New piece? New everything, I said. I like it. It looks like possibility. That's exactly what it is. Later, after she'd gone home, I stood in my apartment and looked around. Small space, simple furniture, nothing fancy. But it was mine. Completely, utterly, perfectly mine. No ghosts, no regrets, no looking back. Corinne had asked for privacy, and I'd given her exactly what she wanted. The last word in our story wasn't hers, it was mine. And that word was freedom.